established.
Hey, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Mr. B. How are you? Well, didn't get any sleep last night, Brian. I'm actually dead on my feet. Anyway, bit more organised today. We've got friends on as usual aboard. You know what you call a nice round table. We've got Brian Singh there, sitting there patiently waiting to speak. And we've got Mr. Doc Skinner, the man himself. And here he is, the man in person, the dream maker, the visionary.
How's it going, everybody?
Hi, Brian. The man with the movie Fly, the story of Jet Parker. I can't do it as good as you, Doc.
Oh, it's all good. So I haven't put a trailer together yet, but
yeah.
So
you'll have to get a trailer for me.
Well, yeah, eventually one day. Yeah, we got to get it filmed first, which happens in June 2024, as long as the poor horsemen don't put a pause to that, which who knows anymore.
Hasn't it been? It's crazy. No, I believe they got the sixth vaccine coming on. They're going round 6 on the actual vaccine now. I mean, which is crazy. And what's happening in Hawaii, which is absolutely crazy, and but it's happening all around the world. I mean,
I know, and I have been no sleep for the past 2.5-3 weeks, just following it closely. And anybody that's watching, if you're on like TikTok or Twitter and you're seeing these videos, which is evidence or testimonies of a historic event that the powers that be are trying to control and control the narrative, basically, by diminishing and deleting and having these accounts closed and whatnot. So my plea to you is anybody that's putting these videos out, make sure they're shareable and savable. And everybody that's seeing these, save them to your phone. If your phone starts to get full, go ahead, transfer them to a hard drive. But this is historic footage, testimony, video that we cannot be, allowed to diminish into the dust. So I've been doing that. I've basically been, cataloging and putting all these videos together, all the Hawaiian footage, all the stuff in Canada, around the world. I mean, more than a third of the world is on fire. You have thousands of people that in the past 2 weeks are having rapture dreams, children included.
Yeah.
Some of them never going to Sunday school, and they're basically preaching out of a dream. So we are getting to a point, and stuff like the Philadelphia experiment and Tesla and Einstein, they knew this was coming. They knew this was coming. And so they used technology like what they were trying to do with the Philadelphia experiment to not just cloak. That was the cover story for the public. Oh, we did it for, to block, what do you call it? Radar. And, well, they pushed a little too hard and ended up going further with it. So
Yeah, they're
anyway,
probably using it in a secret space program. The old, it's out there. They're doing it. That's for sure.
well,
I mean, look at some of these new frigates they're building now. They're stealth. They're
right.
totally stealth.
Well,
I mean,
I've told this before on my show a couple times. But Brian, are you familiar with the old cartoon animation show called All Star Blazers?
Oh yeah, I grew up watching that.
Me
All
too.
Star Blazers,
Blazers, yes.
Nova wave motion gun.
Right
Yeah,
now,
based off the Yamato off of Bondi. Oh hey
but,
Jeanette.
but here's
hi,
the thing.
Jeanette.
Hello. The thing is they use the Eldridge for the experiment, right? And if you look at it, it looks like the All Star Blazers. Now, why would they use? Well, similar. I mean,
Then they have like the side things coming out.
Well,
the
those are the space
out of the
parts
main
that
thing,
add on.
and then
But I
they
mean,
expanded red on the bottom. I can see that though, about the size of the.
If you were to add that for space travel, that's what you would. Those are the components you would add on.
Yeah.
And so why would they use this? Because it was a submergible ship. It was one of those submarine ships. So what can be airtight in space? A submarine. So that's why you have all these big, gigantic cigar ships that are flying around.
The USS Hillenketter, or class. That's a class of ship, actually. It was, but I think like one of them is called the USS. It might be USSS Curtis LeMay, and then that was leaked by Gary McKinnon and then the whole Solar Warden thing. The hacker Gary McKinnon.
Yeah. They persecuted him, didn't they? I mean, when I went to the British courts, right now, you've got to have facts on the table before you're going to convict somebody. Well, what did he steal? And of course, they couldn't say because it's all so hush hush. So
that's why they wanted to deport him over to the U.S.
Oh, of course, yeah. Probably want to Tanamo Bay or something like that. That's where he'll die. I mean, that's what's happened to Julian Assange, isn't it? I mean, they've done it to him. Anyway, Jay, we're getting a few people and like to give out. Say hello there. How you going there? Midwest Night.
And I'm sharing on my Facebook and YouTube as well. So it's streaming on my YouTube channel and Facebook as well. But I haven't been on for so long. People are probably like, who's that guy?
How are you, sweetie? Good to have you on board, huh? Oh, yeah, mate. They're all there today.
Hi, Jeanette.
Yeah.
Well, my wife and I were doing our deferred honeymoon because we got married at the end of 2019 before the whole scamdemic kicked in. And so one of the 3 islands we were going to go to was Maui, but we're now diverting around Maui with the help of our travel agent out of respect for the islanders, because we know that their bodies in the water still, basically, thanks to the directed energy weapon attacks and people being barricaded and trapped in the fire zone and then having to run into the water to flee for their lives, maybe a little bit too late in some cases. But we want to go to the other islands and support the economy however we can, and show our solidarity in this tragedy without, partying in the face of it.
But the thing I don't understand is, Brian, and it's the fact that how fast can a fire spread to the point where people get caught in it? I mean, where there's a fire, where there's fire, there's smoke. You're going to know it's there. You're going to run. You know what I mean?
This is the thing. These fires came up so fast when you listen to the eyewitness testimony, and then they didn't sound the sirens. And then, there's all this smoke, but there's so much smoke. Which way do you run? And then you're barricaded in by the police.
That's right.
Right. Who you think are supposed to help you. And then if there are directed energy weapon attacks involved, which is what we saw essentially in Paradise, California, I'm going to stand by that. Dutch Sense on YouTube was doing a live broadcast monitoring Southern California wildfires, and he caught on the feed a tight microwave high energy beam coming from the sky from Southern Oregon all the way down to Southern California.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the weather guy. Yeah, I just saw that today.
Right. And they came down on him like a house of bricks.
Right. They did. And it's showing up everywhere. I've had so many videos deleted, which were just, redos or reposts. But this one young lady, very spasmodic, but very, very smart, she started noticing these, everything that was blue didn't burn at all. And so she started doing what she called Blue's Clues, like the little dog cartoon, I guess. I'm too old for that. But literally everything that was blue did not heat up or burn. And so there's video that's out there that shows a microwave gun weapon, kind of like you burn rust off of metal, and it just does it instantly. It's like one of those, but as it goes over different colors of fabric, as it goes over the baby blue, it doesn't burn it at all. Now, if you were to go in a battle and you're using these weapons, you wouldn't want your troops to get affected to it. So wouldn't you paint their helmets blue, baby blue as well?
Mm.
So here's the thing. What happens when you put tinfoil or aluminum in a microwave? Sparks up instantly and catches fire, right?
Correct.
Very, very fast. But what happens if you put broccoli in a microwave? Just heats it up so the trees don't burn. So, and of course, they get the governor and the mayor out there to say, you shouldn't follow social media. Social media is a scam. It's all, they're all influencers. The word influencer means they're trying to influence you. It's like, no, dude, we're doing your job because you guys can't keep up with shit. And we are the new form of information because we're all boots on the ground. We all have our phones and we're all right there. And they're there in moments of crisis where people aren't going to sit and fucking jack around unless it's FEMA, and create something out of nothing. You're going to get raw stuff. So when you hear somebody saying, I tried to go out there like the guy Fish, I went up to the front to try to, find out what was blocking. It was an officer who said, I'm just doing my job. I'm told I got to sit here and let you all cook just like the Nazis did. It's ridiculous. And let me tell you, folks, this is going on all over the world. Okay. If you get into a situation and you got fires everywhere and you are backed up, fucking go Mad Max. Don't sit there and allow yourself to die. Go up on the side of the hill. Ram that guy's car. I'm not going to say which one, but the one that's blocking it. Go ahead and ram him. Deal with that shit later. But at least you're helping save those lives of people that are blocked on the roads. And nobody did that because we're all complacent. And I think that also has to do with certain microwaves, all the cell towers and stuff that can go to the frequency of the brain frequency and literally manipulate us. They have all these different frequencies that they could put like the voice of God in your head, all this stuff. They've had it for decades. It was my very, very, very first conspiracy ever that I researched. It was in 1990, was the cell phone towers and how they would do just that. And then the Atlanta City Olympics bombing happened, which was, I believe, their test subject. They wanted to see if they could go beyond the language barrier straight to the thought process. And the best place to do it is at the Olympics, where you have people from all over the world. And if you watch the video, the explosion goes off and everybody in that big, huge courtyard area, surrounded by cell towers, by the way, all of them just go, and they get up and they all slowly walk to the exits, as if someone says, calmly walk to the exits in their language, right? Except for one child who ran frantically through the crowd looking for their parents. Other than that, everybody else was all like Stepford wives and shit. It was crazy. Hold on, I can't hear Jack squat now. There we go.
That happens to me.
So
yes. Wasn't it in also Russia and also in China, the American embassies, they went crazy.
That's recent. That's recent, where they were using. They were using. It was like not a psyops, but they were using microwaves to literally make the members in the ambassadors or the embassy sick, physically sick. Yeah. And so they had to evacuate the building, and that's happened more than once. And we're not innocent. We've done a lot. There we go. That's the video. Thank you very much. If you want to play that. I was looking for it on my phone as I was talking to you guys, but I didn't find it fast enough. Yeah, that is the video. And see how it goes over the baby blue? Now, here's the thing. The baby blue color on the spectrum, the frequency for that color, you know what it is, Mr. B?
Go on.
66.6.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
megahertz, whatever the frequency name is for that. So thank you very
Wavelength.
much, Brian. Wavelength. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Brian. And so yeah, it's all crazy. And then of course you have the land grab and everything. Then you have, the Marines and the FEMA and that whole thing. Then you have the guy getting arrested.
Hey, Dark Hour, by the way, real quick,
is he on here?
Dark Hour,
Hey,
Dark Hour,
Hey,
Paranormal.
you've got his
brother.
you've got his email in. Send him a link. See if he wants to join us.
Who,
Okay.
me? Or you?
Yeah.
One of
You
us
got-
who's
yeah.
friends with him on Facebook.
You just send him a link
Yeah,
on Facebook.
because
Hold
he
on.
was there with us at the Montauk Adventure Tour.
Yeah. I'll have to go to the email. Hold on.
It's all right. I mean, it's up to him. He wants to
There
join
we
us.
go.
It's fine. It's an open door.
Hey, Dark Hour, I'm sending it to you a private message real quick. Hopefully I can make this work.
Yeah. It's crazy. It
And,
really is.
and speaking to what Doc was talking about with, why would the police be given orders to hem
Dark Hour,
people in? Awesome. Why would they be given orders to hem people into a raging inferno area? And the reason why is because of something called Agenda 2030. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to clear people out of beautiful areas, kind of like in the movie Hunger Games, and then herd us all into their 15-minute smart cities, which are basically high-tech chicken coops for human beings.
Well, they call them smart cities because if they said concentration camps, it wouldn't go well. It wouldn't go over very well.
Cities in itself is a pen. I mean, that's where all the work is. That's where everything goes. So everybody works around the city. So
and here's the other thing.
Well, not anymore.
We're being corralled, actually.
Well, here's the other thing.
Yeah, definitely.
These big forest fires that are basically over a third of the world, and you see a third of sea life they're washing up all over the place, and things are trying. I mean, it's all happening, whether people want to believe it or not. It's happening, and if you don't want to believe it's supernatural, you can think, okay, the powers that be, the bad guys, they're using the book of Revelations as a script, and they're using all these technologies to make it happen. Okay. And that most likely could be so, and probably is. Who knows? But who's to say in the beginning when John was writing Revelations and he was seeing all this stuff, he saw it as supernatural when in fact it was technically the government doing what they're doing already. Project Blue Beam and all these things. And so makes you wonder who really came up with the concept. If it's one of those time loop things, did they really do it, or is that still, or are they going to fake it and do all this stuff and then the real show happens? Who knows? But golly, we really went way off of the Philadelphia experiment, though.
Well, no, I want to speak to that.
We'll get back to it.
Because you're raising some great points, Doc. Like, who thought about it? Well, if we've been under kind of like a satanic Luciferian rule for the last 26,000 years with Babylonian money magic and the fall of Lemuria and Atlantis, and here we are with this same occultists. People are hiding the good stuff, right? They're hiding knowledge. Then it's no it's no surprise that they would try to use, say, the Book of Revelation as a playbook to kind of herd us into their reality. But having said that, even in the good book, it's written that God's source wins. So I don't know. They can try to play by the Book of Revelation, but even that doesn't go well for them.
Yeah, but then you also have the Nile River, or Euphrates River, excuse me, is evaporated, and they found these caves and cells without bars that were underwater all this time. And in the Bible, it says when it dries up, those 4 angels would be released. Yeah. The trumpets were hearing them again, and all these crazy storms and everything's happening. The fire. So then you have Saudi Arabia, America, Israel, and all that. They're trying to do this peace treaty for 7 years. So it's like all this stuff that we've been preaching for most of my life, and other people I know, that it's all coming to pass. And I'm at the point where I'm not going to I'm just, if they refuse to wake up by now with everything going on, especially with them coming with a second scandemic.
Hey,
Do not comply, pure
I heard
bloods.
there was a third one actually.
What?
Pandemic.
Oh yeah, they got them all they got them scheduled out.
Mm.
This is all planned. How do you think they have all the look? They create it, get the antidote, and then they let it go. Boom. Then they're like, "Oh, look, we got this thing to save you, and we can get paid a lot of money to do it."
Mm.
So
Anyway,
it's getting
I think it
so
was yesterday.
old. It's getting so old that I think they're really panicking because they realize that people aren't going to comply. They
Right.
didn't. People aren't dropping suddenly as much as they thought they would. I'm glad that Raspberry here points out that, Hawaii was planned. Governor was the lead speaker at the UN about Agenda 2030. And I heard the governor was nowhere near Maui for the last couple of days. So, yeah.
Yeah, they all there's no Red Cross. There's people on the island are saying there's nothing, there's no help. The only help
FEMA apparently came 2 days earlier en masse. Okay. They were there ahead of time with placing vans around Lahaina. Okay.
yeah.
And then the intelligence briefings that I've read as a civilian as an armchair with the interwebs, right? From what I'm piecing together, it sounds like more quote unquote white hat military forces went in to kick the FEMA bad operators out because their playbook is pretty obvious by now. And so then I heard from someone else that they were just seeing a whole bunch of FEMA people at the airport leaving Hawaii. And I said, yeah, I think I know why. They're getting out of Dodge because it's getting hot for them.
I mean, look at all the. I mean, I don't want to go all into the whole Trump thing, but I mean, just that alone, them trying to continuously indict him over and over again.
Oh,
so
that's a joke, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I mean, his interview with Tucker Carlson has over 200 million views, whereas Fox has had the worst ratings ever for a debate in their history. So it's getting bad, but people are figuring it out and they're waking up. But this is what I'm. Hey, Hollywood, how's it going? Long time no see. Yes. But it's shit. What was I saying? Thanks, Hollywood.
You're talking about Trump. You're talking about Trump, Don.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're so desperate. And what kills me is when they sit there and make all these accusations. I'm like, wait, isn't there proof that you're doing that same thing? It's so I guess they call it gaslighting, where you accuse somebody of something you're doing. Is that what it is?
Hey, by the way, just hold on a sec. Hey, everybody, how about tickling that little fella up there? Oops, that way, up there.
Depends on what you're tickling. Be careful where you're pointing.
And subscribe, right? And also tickle the little fella down there, the blue one. The thumbs up. How do you like that? Hey, only in Australia we say things like that. I know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
I know. I know. Hey mate, I'm not far wrong either.
Yes.
Keep it clean, Terry. It's a family show.
All right. So Dark Hour. He just did a show with Jared on Spaced Out Radio. He's got to get up early in the morning, so he won't be able to join us. So maybe another night, like maybe Wednesday, he said. So
yeah, well, we can always do one late Wednesday. That will make it early morning. You guys are, unfortunately. But so anyway, what I was going to say, hey, maybe I can just kind of get out the old guitars. Roll another one, just like the other one. Oh, just joking.
Well, you said so.
Oh dear. Oh God. Yes, a border collie, is it? Yes, lovely dog.
This is Winnie the Wonder Dog. She's known intergalactically. She's a hit at all the UFO conferences.
It's got blue eyes. Has that got blue eyes?
One blue and one more dark brown.
Hybrid, eh? Anyway, listen, guys. Let's get on to the next subject we actually came here for. Actually,
yep, let's do it.
Yep. The Philadelphia experiment. Well, that's. Yes, well, it's been a bit of a mystery for a long time. Everybody talks about it. I personally don't know really too much about it. Actually, I was actually talking to Brian. Brian was saying that Einstein took all the credit when Nikola Tesla was the guy that actually It's his coils they actually use to do the damn job, you know. So
yeah, it was a joint effort, but Tesla never gets the credit.
Yeah. So I just start running.
Nor does Einstein's wife. So, yeah.
I just run the first one. I've only lasts about a minute. So here we go.
Famous as a mathematician and a theorist. In many of his attributed accomplishments comes this harrowing story. Of his many theories where time travel or bending time, as well as bending light to use as camouflage, making an object invisible, is plausible. Did Albert Einstein unlock the secrets to cloaking devices and time travel? Did the U.S. Navy experiment with these theories during World War II? If so, why had these experiments, if they succeeded, not been replicated? Or have they, and we just do not know about them? Was alien technology part of the program development? Albert Einstein also had theories on teleportation, time travel by bending time, and combined it was called the unified field theory. And it would seem, according to this story, that all of these theories were put in practice. The U.S. Navy launched Operation Rainbow during World War II to test this theory with U.S. Navy ships.
Well, okay. Now, Einstein was a theoretical physicist. Nikola Tesla, he's the mechanic, right?
Yeah, he's the nuts and bolts guy. Yeah, definitely.
Applied sciences, applied physics. So I think I'll give it to Nikola Tesla personally, because you got to have the knowledge behind it to create it. You know what I mean?
And a lot of his stuff was used for weapons. I actually put this up on TikTok yesterday. And all of a sudden you just like, boom, a thought hits you and you're like, oh, did anybody else ever think of this? So you jump on TikTok, put it out there. His stuff was used with frequencies and everything. And we've seen stuff that's happened with these fires, what they could do to people. So my theory was, and I said it was a theory, I said, what if back in the day, Tesla, one of his technologies was used for a weapon and it was being tested on random people. And those are the people that we see recorded in history for spontaneous human combustion. It's just a theory. I'm not saying it's fact. Mm-hmm. And so this girl responds to me and she goes, I don't think Elon Musk would ever do anything like that. I'm like, sweetie, LOL. Nikola Tesla, Google him.
Well, the other thing is, without Tesla and then GE Westinghouse and Morgan ripping off of him, we wouldn't have.
Excuse me, guys. Hey, look, he just got out of bed. Hey, sorry. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait. Hey, I'll get to you in a minute, Prof. Okay, mate. Yeah. Sorry, Brian.
Please continue.
Brian,
my apologies for butting in there, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, just this whole Einstein versus Tesla thing. Without Tesla, they wouldn't have had GE Westinghouse, which was doing the large-scale power plants. But then, of course, without GE Westinghouse, we would probably have Tesla technology, and then we'd have more zero-point energy.
Right. And it's all because they said, they wouldn't cover it because they couldn't meter it. That was the whole reason. And
right.
So,
Morgan said he didn't like it because you can't put a meter on it.
Right.
And he won't be able to sell as much copper as he needs to for wires.
Yeah. And then you have all these people that are talking about our Carpathia or the old city with the mud floods. Have you heard about that?
Tartaria.
Sorry.
It was a country. It was a region.
Yeah. And they had wireless electricity, and they talk about how churches and big mansions and stuff, they were built to produce wireless electricity. And now, they put glass in these clover-looking holes in churches that were supposedly to conduct electricity. Now, if you take a device out of a microwave, it's a disc, and it's shaped just like those window openings. And so it makes you wonder, why would they subdue it if we had it already? Greed. It's all about money and greed, which sure. I think we as Americans are probably going to be losing that in the next couple of months.
Actually, I saw a video earlier on during the week, and I did post it on my Facebook. I should have copied it and put it on the show. I think it was back in the 80s. these two guys with this generator. It takes in something like about 100 volts, that pushes out so many terabytes of gigabytes of bloody power.
Yeah.
Thousands of heaps more power than what it does. It runs itself.
Yeah, there's several of those around the world. People doing that in their backyards or in their garages. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, guys. I'll just show the next video. This one goes for about 4.5 minutes, probably. But if you want me to stop it, just put your hand up, and if you want to make a comment, okay.
The experiment is said to go forward. Powerful electromagnetic fields are engaged around the Eldridge, a skeleton crew aboard. Scientists and officers watching at a safe distance. The only other reported eyewitness is Carlos Allende, a deckhand on a nearby Liberty ship.
And what he claims he saw was a ship that was engulfed in a greenish, almost a St. Elmo's fire, a green fiery fog.
As the electromagnetic fog swallows the Eldridge, strange optical effects manifest themselves.
And that as he watched and was able to even insert his arm into what he called the terrific flow of this energy, the ship disappeared.
To the amazement of all the onlookers, they not only had radar invisibility, they had optical invisibility.
The Eldridge reportedly achieves the supreme form of camouflage, invisibility. But then comes an even stranger effect, teleportation. Chroniclers of the Philadelphia experiment are divided on whether this happens that first day or in a follow-up test. But what they do agree on is that as the Eldridge starts to reappear, there is a sudden flash of light. That the ship vanishes from sight once again and simultaneously begins to reappear in the naval yard in Norfolk, Virginia, 300 miles away. After a few minutes, she dematerializes in Norfolk and reappears in the midst of another ozone-laden green fog in Philadelphia. Throughout this miraculous journey, the USS Eldridge emerges unscathed. But for her crew, it is a different story.
Men were molecularly attached to the ship, bonded with the ship as it was teleported. Men were driven insane, men caught fire, men went invisible. I mean, it was terrible, horrific things that happened to these crew members.
Philadelphia Naval Yard, summer 1943. According to legend, the USS Eldridge returns after being teleported hundreds of miles. As she rematerializes out of a thick green fog, observers are electrified by the achievement, but their excitement turns to horror. Molecules have been scrambled, human with metal. Limbs have been fused to bulkheads. A gruesome sight.
First thing they found was 2 sailors buried in the steel deck. The bodies were literally buried in the steel, dying or near dead. 2 more were found standing upright in a bulkhead, also buried in the steel. 5th man with his hand buried in the steel up to his wrist.
Other sailors are simply missing, vaporized into thin air. For survivors, there are still other problems due to the powerful electromagnetic fields they have been exposed to.
Men were driven insane, men caught fire, men went invisible. I mean, it was terrible, horrific things that happened to these crew members.
The problem basically was that the human nervous system could not take exposure to that level of magnetic and electric fields, and it would cause neural damage.
Nerve damage so severe that some of the victims are reportedly institutionalized, while falsely classified as missing in action.
Their family was never told the truth. They were told basically that they were lost at sea during the war as part of the war effort.
Well, how's that? Says a lot, doesn't it?
Guys, I think I know somebody, one person at least, that could explain those people being embedded in the metal with the frequencies and the microwave energy and all that. You know who it would be? Dr. Hutchinson, the Hutchinson effect.
Oh, yeah.
In his garage, he could melt items together
Mm.
with all of his machines just in his garage. So imagine if you had Tesla and Einstein.
Yeah,
and
you'll know
government's
the
money.
physics of it, certainly.
So, I mean, I think he's still alive.
I
Isn't
think
he?
you have to wear that outfit that he likes to wear.
The dress.
Yeah.
I know. I know he likes to
well,
wear
all the
dresses
different
now.
costumes, because I think that's part of the conjuring of the energy that he engages in. Because
Oh, yeah.
to me, all of this is just examples of science trying to replicate the mystic arts and metaphysics.
Correct.
So they're trying to do it with math and models and machine and men and putting all this stuff together to try to do it. But it's basically esoteric experiments and manifestations using math. They put all these models together and they create this stuff so that it's actually the metaphysical aspects of reality that they're trying to model. And it's kind of similar, what we're seeing and what it seems as though, from an observational perspective, what happened in that experiment was something that went way beyond what they expected. They planned for this. They thought their parameters and the wheelhouse and the lane they were going down was going to stay within it, but it jumped beyond it. It's kind of like the Castle Bravo hydrogen bomb tests, where they expected it to be 7.5 kilotons and ended up being 15. And everybody was like, well, wait a minute, lithium. They didn't expect the lithium-3 that they put into the bomb to have an impact, but it totally did. So their models didn't account. They accounted for what they thought was going to happen, and the models were wrong. So the Philadelphia experiment, wrapping the magnetic coils around the ship, how much energy was actually cranked into it. I think they passed a threshold that they didn't account for, and then had the manifestations of the effects that they had no control over. So having different materials bond together, or having different things become fused, to me, that makes total sense in the frequency physics perspective, not in the physics of quantum mechanics and theory that we use today.
Well,
But they tried to go down the path and seeing where math would become magic. It got away from them.
Right.
Can I speak to that, Professor?
Yeah.
My understanding is a lot of the sailors who got fused in the hull were either, they're kind of maybe experimenting and playing around when the ship was in the warp, like, wow, I can go in and walk through a wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was the sailors who didn't have as good a perception or understanding of themselves and their own bodies and physical beingness in relationship to the ship, which has a lot of quantum physics to it, if you will, in terms of consciousness. But the other thing is it doesn't sound, from all reports that I've read and the people I've talked to, that it was so much just like a gee whiz science experiment. It was starting out with a military application of radar and visibility, but then once they realized, like you were talking about, how there's an X factor of so much more beyond the parameters of their wildest dreams, they then moved it over to Brookhaven National Labs. And then from there, they moved over to of New York State, and then to the east end of Long Island, right, of New York State, Montauk Point, where you had Camp Hero. And instead of just being like a pure science thing, they were using something called the Montauk Trip Chair, which was taken from one of the Roswell downed UFOs, and sticking abused, traumatized children into the chair to open up portals in time and space, to do all sorts of shenanigans to put us onto what we call a negative timeline. And so I always like to kind of give the nickel version of it, because everyone knows these days, it seems, about the Philadelphia experiment, but they don't quite get to draw the line to the Montauk Project, much less to the secret space programs and time travel, for the sake of the cabal bad guy forces, to put us onto a negative timeline where they win.
Right.
Hey,
And a lot of people that don't know, that was what Stranger Things was based off of. The original title of the show was the Montauk. So yeah, it's a horrific story. And if you listen to a lot of people that, you know, part of the Space Warden, those victims that have gone through the trauma treatment, and now they're coming out and they're doing their podcasts and stuff and telling their story. And it's a lot of it leads to Montauk.
Hey, did
You're
you
on,
see?
you're on mute, Brian.
Hey, did you guys see that video that was going viral the other day on Facebook? It's about the size of a shoebox, round like a small telescope size, and they're actually tree lopping it. Tree lopping. They're actually using
the
lasers.
laser. Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking to myself, now this thing, look, it would have been about yay big. You know,
You can get on Amazon.
You can carry the damn thing. Now, we're actually now talking about something we're in a totally different field now of weaponry. I mean, you can start doing away with machine guns totally, because all you got to have one of these and go, you know, it's an energy field. If you're hiding behind a log, it goes through the log and kills you anyhow. You know,
that or they just use an
crazy.
LRAD, which is what they use for crowd dispersion, which is a directional
Sonic.
microwave beam, sonic beam that literally will cook you on the inside and make you just run from the agony.
It's crazy. I mean, what we see on social media, what they allow us to see. I mean, imagine what they've got that don't want us to see. That's the scary part. Because if they've got something so high tech, they don't want the opposition to know. I mean, they want to hold the ace card, don't they? Definitely. That's how it goes.
Brian, if I'd like to explore the point you were making, if you don't mind, about using this technology and doing these experiments to try to flip the timeline into a negative posture. Right?
You want an example? You want an example that one of the survivors gave me?
Well, more generic than that, or simple than that. At the fundamental level, what gives you the thought and the observation that was an example of the turning of the timeline or of the energy frequency into a negative posture on purpose? I mean, all the examples and things that happened there.
No, the Eldridge itself wasn't. Eldridge was just an experiment to realize time and space experiments were possible.
Well, you were talking about they were taking him to the chair and using kids to try to change the timeline and make it negative.
Right.
What is the model behind that? What's the motive behind that? And what's the evidence of you doing that?
Well, basically, the idea is that when you travel back in time, the way you get around the paradoxes of, like, what if I killed my grandfather? My understanding is that you are going to get certain paradox resolution, but you also have timelines that will now split off. So these are now parallel timelines, right? So there's a parallel timeline where the U.S., the South won the Civil War, and we get split up, and the United States never becomes a powerhouse it's supposed to be. And there's a future timeline where we never really develop or go past a certain stage and are stagnant for a while.
So if you don't, right there, if you would clarify the multiple timelines, because I've been exploring this myself, and from what I understand and the way that we understand time in its current state, the multiple timeline thing is probably impossible.
Okay, so I always throw out how we understand time, because
and I'm talking about just the general understanding and the knowledge that's available.
Exactly.
But it also, I think that there's an argument, or at least some reasonable exploration needs to be done into a plasma model of frequencies and how time can be how you can transverse time in a plasma model, which is not the way that we currently understand, or what we have is the academic or officialdom of physics.
Well,
because I think that's all completely screwed up. But go ahead.
The chronovisor is apparently based on using plasma, and having the jets of plasma focus in a proper way so that you can tune in to other close timelines. In terms of how does like time travel work, where how would we get from, say, or not just time, but parallel timeline travel work?
Yes.
Where we're going from here, United States, America, where clearly the North won the Civil War, to one where the South won. What I was told is it's easier to move to parallel timelines that are closer to ours. So to get to one that like where like the South won and we never did this and like we got invaded by, let's say, reptilians or something and eaten, a very, very, very different timeline than what we have here versus like a minor shift, Berenstain Bears versus Berenstein Bears, right? It's not so hard to go from to the closer ones, but to get to the farther ones, you have to jump to like say ones that are closer to then transition to the farther out ones. That's my
So what would you consider evidence of that?
So, I mean, I'm going by eyewitness testimony of, say, a buddy of mine, Arkeem Ra, who he speaking with other people who served in these programs as time soldiers, programs like Project Ibis and Project Pegasus, like Andrew Basiago attests to, and you got the picture of him as a boy at the Gettysburg Address. Well, one of the missions that Arkeem talks about remembering, and some of these missions would last whole lifetimes, okay, is imagine you've got, because you got the 20 and back programs. So, Tony Rodriguez and all them, Laura Eisenhower, and I could name many, many who talk about 20 and back. And for like 50
Isn't Corey
different people.
Good in that lot as well?
He is, but Corey Good. But the deal with Corey Good is that he has been part of those programs. He probably has negative programming. During the lawsuit, he did a really dick move and claimed it was all his own intellectual property. Does that tar the whole movement? Does that mean the 50 other people coming out saying the exact same things about 20 and back programs, multiple 20 and back programs knocked off, and they're all just making it up? Sure, guys, that's up to you. I don't think so, and I reserve that right. Now, having said that,
listen, guys, I've got to say hello. I've got to say g'day, Christy. She's a good friend of mine.
Great.
Christy works in, and g'day, Matt. These are all on Facebook, so we don't see you guys what we're on show, and because we see everybody that's in YouTube. So if you want to get in and chat with us, go to YouTube. Like and subscribe. Hey, join the family. We're a happy bunch. We're a bit sick in the head sometimes, but hey.
But I want to speak to this because a lot of us are coming from supposition, giggle factor, and this is really hard to swallow. But I'm coming from eyewitness testimonies, victims of satanic ritual abuse, people I see alter out, people who I can talk to them separately, and they have they have the same memories. When I was at Montauk with these people on the tour, and we were on the bluff between the lighthouse and the Sage radar tower, that's kind of like the most notorious iconic feature of the Montauk project, if you will. I could walk up to separate ones of the people who are with us on the tour and say, I walked up to one, and one of them said, "Holy shit, I remember our flying lessons off of this bluff. We used to run off this bluff and fly. It's like a 50-foot drop into the rocks in the ocean." And then I'll walk up to another person. I won't say anything to anyone else. I'll walk up to another one of the survivors and say, "Do you remember this bluff? You remember anything about it weird?" And they're like, "You know what? I fucking remember flying off of this bluff." You know what? And I'm like, and I could do that to like a couple of people. And they're not talking to each other. They didn't like pre-plan to tell Brian they remember while we're walking around a tour of Camp, Hero this bluff. Let's tell Brian like we ran off the cliff here. Sure. Okay. But having said that, because we know the reason all this stuff, this disclosure, the reason why they were going to call it Stranger Things a Montauk Project, there's a reason for this, folks. And if you believe it or not, that's fine. We're going to have someday worldwide televised tribunals with these victims coming out and some of the perpetrators. And all the stuff about the clones and the chip heads and the parasitized people, it's all going to come out, and it ain't going to be pretty. Now, in terms of testimonies, Arkeem, Professor asked a great question, like, what does the Montauk Project and time travel have to do with putting us onto a negative timeline? What things like the Mandela effect? Okay, maybe and I'll go into my own testimony to the Mandela effect being absolutely real. Okay, but having said that, what our team remembers is during Project Ibis, I think was the name, or Project Phoenix is what they call it. It was one of those two projects. They identified someone back in like 1400s Italy. I don't know the exact date, where he was kind of like a combination of Leonardo da Vinci and Nikola Tesla in one. Okay, the things that this person was working on would have given us either like anti-gravity or endless energy, one of the two. Okay, but the cabal people running these projects did not like that, obviously. Okay, so what they did is in that timeline, they sent people back. This is where they get the term time soldiers and time agents to basically live in this guy's village and F with him his whole entire life. Make sure his experiments never quite worked. Make sure that writer or poet who is going to put the guy on the map never quite made it to lunch with that guy. Okay, made sure his lab burned down at the right time. Those sorts of things. And what Arkeem in particular remembers about it, it makes him cry, not just what they did to this nice old Italian inventor guy for 40 or 50 years of his life. Okay, Arkeem in particular remembers getting sent back through these doors to then drag the people back who had been running these missions. Imagine you get to be in deep cover living in 1400s Italy to mess with this guy. In the meantime, you meet a nice gal, you have kids, you live in there for 30, 40 years. It's literally a time mission. Okay. And then once they decided, okay, we screwed this guy over enough. We've erased him from history enough. We've cock-blocked him enough. Now we're going to drag our agents back. And as you can imagine, a lot of those people weren't very happy going back to a shitty Montauk project to be raped and abused and altered, okay, when they could just chill out in 1400s Italy.
So okay, so let me ask a couple of questions there, because that sounds fascinating and it sounds, I guess, plausible.
And that's why we do this show, because we don't want the boring shit.
But just let me just take your timeline there and the idea that people purposely sent people back to go fuck with other people so that stuff would change.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, definitely. 100%.
Okay. Now, I mean, aside from just, this standard model of time travel and the grandfather paradox and all of that, to me, and just as a quick side note, the only thing that has clearly demonstrated time travel, in my opinion, is non-local consciousness. Sure. There are anomalies and new parts and artifacts and things that clearly show from the information that we use to analyze these things that they are way out of place. You got 300 million year old coal with a nice little vase in it. Okay. Or you've got the wheel in the cave that's 300 feet under the surface.
Yeah, or you have people today remote viewing things 300 years in the past or 3,000 years in the future.
Well, that's my point. Remote viewing is non-local consciousness, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the only thing that, to me, that I've seen is as empirical data, where time travel occurs and space travel. So it's really space-time travel that occurs. But if you look at history, at least the history of the things that we can look at that we now have data on, like Tartaria, like the electrical capabilities that apparently the Tartarians had and the Egyptians had. And if you listen to Casey, the Atlanteans had with the two-eyed stone. Okay. There was an ability to essentially take energy out of the ether, right? Yeah. So it's etheric energy.
Yeah. And some of the missions that they ran to mess with time, my understanding was to help erase Tartaria from history.
But they didn't do a very good job.
They did a great job. I didn't learn about Tartaria until 5 years ago on Facebook with these like Instagram posts or TikTok.
My point is that they didn't do a good job because we have now found that information.
But they did a good job enough.
They wiped it out. You've got the 1971 or I think it's early 70s CIA document where they are clearly saying we are erasing all of this history.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Stargate project.
If they have the ability to travel back in time to change it so shit doesn't happen, they apparently aren't very good at it, is my point. Tartaria, there's mud flood information all over the place.
Well,
there are
Professor,
writings. And there
let me argue this. It's one thing to say, oh, they didn't cover it up because there's information about it, but the fact is they effectively covered it up because that civilization is gone.
For
sure,
the time,
we have books about it, and we have pictures, one or two,
information about
but
it.
there's no one from Tartaria being like, hey, I speak Tartarian, and here's how you put together a cathedral that generates energy.
I don't know about that.
I don't see them. They did a pretty good job to me. Where are they?
Well, that's my point, is that if they were supposed to go back and erase this, you wouldn't have the CIA document. You wouldn't have the images and the pictures and the drawings.
So they're not omnipotent. Okay, so let's start here. Let's go back to this.
In my opinion, I don't think they would be there.
They're not omnipotent. For one thing, the way the Montauk Project ended was they kept throwing these kids into the Montauk chair to tell them to summon portals or gold or whatever they wanted them to materialize. And the kid finally materialized a giant Sasquatch named Junior to tear apart the base and tear apart their tormentors while not harming the children, the victims. Okay. And so these guys aren't in control. They're not. They try, but the whole thing is there's also universal karmic law. And sure, maybe in certain timelines they do win. Maybe I've heard there's like 64 primary timelines. In 40, we, the good guys, win. And in 14, it's like the bad scenarios: zombie apocalypse, Mad Max, Terminator, The Matrix. Yeah, because the universe and God's source wants to experience all realities and all possibilities. So why wouldn't? The question is what vibration and frequency are we on individually and collectively? So that puts us on whatever timeline it puts us on. And that's up to us. That's universal law as well, free will.
But they keep us distracted.
Well, they try to keep us distracted. That's also up to us.
So my interpretation of that is based on this model I've got called Informatica. Informatica is based on mentalism, panpsychism, basically that consciousness is all. Everything flows from consciousness. Everything exists because of consciousness, that which we all experience, but none of us can explain or define other than the little habits and natures that we experience of consciousness. But consciousness has its main expression is energy. It is an consciousness. Its nature is energy. Its habit is creation. So because it is consciousness is energy, and energy is the frequencies that make up all reality. That which we see, that which we don't. Okay.
Just hold it for a sec. But if you don't see it, don't hear it, it doesn't exist.
Well, that's why you have quantum
sure,
mechanics.
Terrence. Sure, I'm on the other side of that spectrum, baby.
Yeah. But my point is that consciousness creates the habit and nature of consciousness is energy. Its habit is creation. It's in a constant motion. It's in constant cyclical motion, and the motion is it creates. So consciousness, in essence, is in search of novelty. It's in search of the new, and the unfolding of that through its own set of frequencies and energy that the frequencies use to create reality. So we are frequency stamps of that consciousness. We are of it. We are a part of it. We are because of it.
And we are unique
signatures of consciousness through the energy in those frequencies. Yeah. All of it is based on it's a neutral thing. There isn't these concepts of good and bad and negative and positive or any of that. Those are constructs that we have created as our expression of consciousness and the energy and the motion and the creation and the novelty that we are.
Well, but we can still describe good and bad in terms of frequency and vibration.
Well, I think that's really harmony and disharmony. It's either resonance or disresonance. In other words, my friend Jeff Harmon, who's a Vedic astrologer, goes deep into all of the ways in which the Vedic approach to astrology is basically kind of based on the Kabbalah. And there's like 47 levels and then 47 levels. And there's the angelic realms, there's the consciousness realm, there's a material realm, which is where we are, which is at the very bottom. but it describes a very complex hierarchy of the ways in which these frequencies from the energy of consciousness expresses itself. So you can have, I'm trying to get to this point, back to your point about creating this negative timeline or this negative set of energies. It seems to me that we're ending some 300 to 400 year cycle. Cliff High says we're on the 325 years out of the Kali Yuga. We're not in it. We're out of it.
We're getting out of the Kali Yuga and I think into the Satya Yuga finally, like the golden era, out of the darkness.
So
finally,
that 300 to 400 years is there's a very unique set of characteristics that seem to happen in that cycle. Before I understood that from at least Jeff's Vedic astrology perspective, I had the sense that we are at the end of a 400-year cycle that had a particular set of frequencies that a whole bunch of people with malintent and not necessarily looking out for everybody else's goodwill kind of ruled everything. They were able to hold on to that energy and manipulate it in a way that the masses didn't see, the masses didn't know. The mystery schools, Blavatsky, you had Maxwell and Hamilton and Heaviside and Faraday and all these guys that were having these incredible just bolts from the blue of the way that reality actually works, and they kept popping up particularly over the 19th century. So we're at the end of this cycle. This energy that these guys have been riding and controlling and trying to not be as nice as they could or should be, that energy they're riding is falling off. They are losing that wave, that cycle, those frequencies, and they can no longer hang on. They've been so embedded in that frequency set and so used to manipulating, controlling it, that they're trying to hold on with everything that they possibly can. They're like the cornered animal, just throwing whatever it can in its last gasp. The cycle is the more important piece, is the cycle itself. We are finishing this 400-year cycle, and the next cycle we're in, it's like a crossfade, right? You're coming out of the 325 of the Kali Yuga, you're coming up in the next, and there's a phase, there's a cross in the middle as they transition. It's not a clean line. So that creates a set of frequencies that's very confusing and very intense and creates a lot of abnormal energies that we don't normally experience. So as we transition through it, we're watching all this crazy crap go on. I personally think, and I thought in 2019, that like the 1920s, they called it the roaring 20s. I thought that the 2020s is going to be the soaring 20s, where we were going to finally start getting some of this Jetson stuff that I grew up with and looking out in the Thunderbirds and all this crazy stuff and going, it's here. The technologies that have been kept from us, have been manipulated on us, have been known about for a long time, for a few hundred years, at least in our modern era, and thousands of years ago before then.
Let me step in here for a moment.
Frequencies, and we are now getting the opportunity to understand and relate and use them to our collective benefit.
Let me step in here for a moment. Back in the late 50s, mid 60s, early 70s, like you talk about the Jensens, right? The cartoon characters. Now, if I recall right, every magazine we're talking about anti-gravity. Science is working on this. Science is going to work on that. They were actually talking about it. And all of a sudden, even at the World Fairs, they'll have what these prototype things. I mean, they're not anti-gravity, but this is what they're going to look like. They've got this image, this projection. And all of a sudden, like overnight, it's not part of the media anymore. They don't talk about anti-gravity. They don't talk about, but it was a thing. It was a thing, and it was in every paper, every magazine. Science is doing this, science is doing that, and all of a sudden, I think it was mid '60s, something like that. Bang.
Vietnam War,
probably.
Well, that would kind of coincide with the Ad Astra TR3B program, because we do have that.
Yeah,
we do have anti-gravity.
Oh, of course, I believe that.
I've seen the TR3B. It flew over me here in the White Mountains of Arizona
a few
years back on a Thursday night at exactly 7:00.
And once you have a TR-3B and the ability to have anti-gravity, you have the ability to bend space and time.
Yeah, and this was just like right above the trees, a few feet above the pine trees. This wasn't like way up a dot or anything. And it was going so slow that it was doing this, like it was in water, but the three corners were lit up red, and then it kind of slowly went over the tree lights. And I had two friends who were getting out of the car. I was like, look, and one of them was, no, UFOs don't exist. There's no Bigfoot, nothing. He saw that, his whole life changed.
A couple of mates and I went to Golf and Carpentaria. I think I mentioned this before. Golf and Carpentaria for scuba diving and fishing, but took a boat, 4-wheel drive, the old thing. So we left the Golf and Carpentaria, too many crocodiles, and we camped out one night, and all suddenly all the crickets went silent, and then it looked like a bushfire happening in the distance. Now we're in the tropics here, right? So and all of a sudden, it wasn't a triangle; it was like a kite in shape, and it would have been only a few hundred feet above our heads, and you swear it was about 2 levels high. It would have been about 2 levels high, 2 floors, and all underneath was just illuminated with the ripple, like you get the heat on a freeway, rippling heat, and it's so silent, and every hair in your body just stood up. And my mate actually had a Canon A1 camera, and he took rapid shots on using I think a setting on for about 400 or something like that, on the old Canon A1. But I've been trying to chase him up and trying to find out his surname, And, oh God, mate! I tell you, it's a pain in the ass. I like to see those films, honestly, because it was so close, But yes, I hear where you're coming from. TRB3s in whatever shapes you want them, they're there. No, I believe it.
Hey, Brian, real quick, just to backtrack on what you were saying earlier, can I blow your mind? Bashago used to be my roommate.
No shit.
Yeah, when he was starting off his presidential campaign, he stayed with me for about 3 months up here, and then didn't pan out. But yeah, I've heard.
Who's this dude? Who's this dude? I don't know who.
Andrew Bassaggio, Project Pegasus.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And Jeff Harmon's a friend of mine too. Him and his wife, they're just lovely people. Anyway,
So Doc, on your time with Andrew, what was your impression of him and his story? I mean, I remember the early interviews I listened to 10 or more years ago, and I'm listening to this guy going, "This is one of the most intelligent, most critical thinking people I've heard in a long time."
Yes, he's very, very intelligent. Very intelligent. There you go.
Yeah, well, okay. Listen, guys, I think it's time we start wrapping this up. It's that time of the day. I know Brian doesn't want to upset his missus.
No, it's all good. I think we kept a pretty good time schedule, and I think the main thing is because we're speaking about models of time and time travel and parallel worlds. I think it's a really important concept, because when people grasp the quantum nature of reality and the time stream and can grasp that, the Mandela effect is real, and that we can literally wake up one day in a world where things are one way and then the next where things are another, okay, then I think it gives us a sense of power, to me, because that means that we can have effect on our timeline and even on this timeline. And then part of what we didn't get to really was how in Montauk 3.0, when Junior chased off the bad guys from the base, several of the time soldiers, including Arkeem, remember interfacing with my father and helping to download information to him that put Sang Labs Inc. onto the map. And I can tell you, his company, starting out of our basement, blew up in the 80s, in the 90s. Find us on Wikipedia. He was a real deal. The AMD architecture is based off of his architecture. And I always wonder, wow, I knew my dad, he's smart, but damn, is he that smart? And so would it surprise me to know that people came back from the future to help download certain information to give him a little bit of a kickstart and give him an X factor over his X factor he already had? Would I be surprised? No. And part of it is because when we talk about timelines, Arkeem in these projects getting thrown through all these doorways and seeing into the future because the bad guys were trying to find negative timelines. He also got to see a couple, like 7 good timelines. And in those 7 or so good timelines, he remembers seeing me at these televised tribunals and at this Rose Garden memorial ceremony in particular held at Montauk Point. And what I believe is that they probably reverse engineered who's this Chinese guy in his suit at all these tribunals and all his stuff who we don't remember from any of the programs, located me and found out, okay, maybe if we can help his father make him successful, then we can place Brian in a place to help us go on the Montauk tour and be part of the Full Disclosure Now movement. You know, there's more to say, but let's talk timelines and timeline healing and not just hurting the timelines. And I do, for one, believe that's possible.
All right, here's a thought. Now, I did a special with Third Phase of Moon about Stargates, portals, and dimensions and whatnot. What if we have multiple timelines throughout our life, just as one individual? Okay, every time we make a major decision, go left or right, right?
That's a quantum nature.
There's a split off.
Yeah.
You know, the dual atoms and quantum physics and all that, right? Okay, so you got that going on. What if deja vu are moments right there, transition between dimensions where you get an opportunity to make a second chance or a second choice? Because the first one may have been bad.
Yes, deja vu is supposed to be like timeline nodes. And then apparently
that's a good word. Good word.
And if you get branches, and if you get a lot of deja vu, that's apparently a good thing because it means you're on your path.
You're on the right
I don't know
path,
if that's true, but it makes sense to me.
You didn't go off a cliff.
Because you get all these people, you know, professors talking about quantitative data. You know, I put near-death experiences into those, and where people have near-death, where they get to see past and future events, and then they'll give their testimony about how they saw that they would have. They never thought they'd get married, but in the future they're going to have a husband and 3 kids. And what do you know? 20 years later, they had a husband and 3 kids. Now, are they liars? Maybe. Now, are thousands and thousands of people lying, having the exact same experience over and over with near-death reviews and you know, bodies of light communicating them and embracing them in warmth and love while they're clinically brain dead for 40 minutes? I don't think so.
Not to mention lucid dreams, though. I mean, lucid dreams.
But not when you're brain dead, because we have enough near-death experiences on the books now where the person is clinically brain dead. Okay, no brain signals really on the frontal lobe or cortex.
How would you correlate that with past lives?
Because you're talking about how we're energy and frequency and vibration. Well, we're just here in this incarnation in mortal bodies. But being what the Farsight Institute, they like to call us immortal spiritual beings, right? Well, then we just keep coming back and back and back. I think the big problem for us as humans in this 3D matrix, a spear garbage, if you will, is that we apparently, every time we incarnate, have to go through what's known as the veil of forgetting. And so other races, not trapped on this prison planet or educational planet, if you will, they don't necessarily have to have that veil of forgetfulness. And I'm talking specifically ETs or beings that are 4th density consciousness and above. Right now, humanity, you know, we're considered 3rd density. 1st density is rock and earth. 2nd density is plant and animal and insects kind of below that. 3rd density is us humans, where we're not telepathic and we're kind of individualistic and corralled and not activated. 4th density is where we're ascending to now into 5th density, with 4th just being a stopover from an individual psychic consciousness to more of a collective consciousness and collective consciousnesses. And then it goes up from there to 6th, 7th, 8th is like godlike density status. Maybe
so
7th.
How would you explain these people? I mean, and this again to me falls into the anecdotal, but also very empirical data of these people that are born that remember their entire past life, and they can, and you know, as children, and they start telling their parents and people. I was this person over here, and they're going, or I lived over here, and they said, there's no way, you've never been there, you don't even know where that's at. And they
then
go
they
and
prove
they
it.
find that they actually did. So to me, I don't use the term reincarnation. To me, they are iterations. So we go through an iterative process in a cyclical model, just because we are a part of consciousness, which has cycles within cycles and cycles. But apparently it's very rare to carry over the information from the previous iteration, but it does happen. It's like a bleed through, I guess. And so you have these examples. What does that mean from the way you see the world and the consciousness? Is that time travel?
I think the light that you see when you die is the light as you're coming out of your mom in the hospital room. That's why you come out kicking and screaming, God damn it, son! But you can't do it. You don't have to speak yet, you know?
Let me give you an example, Professor, and I think this is really going to sum it up. Okay. Because you're first, when we talk about reincarnation and being cyclical and the nature of time, my understanding is that we really should be looking at time as existing all at once. And a good example of this is someone who was they were speaking with a very talented medium or channeler, okay, and they were asking to speak with an aspect of their father who was like still alive or something, but very distant from them. And the channeler calls up a being who's like like a mantis being or some kind of blue type of insect or something being, okay, like an Arcturian or whatever. And the lady's asking, well, first of all, my father's still alive and he's a human, and you're channeling like some kind of blue insectoid being and claiming it's my father. What gives? And what the response is, yes, this is your father. This is an aspect of your father far into the future, but it's part of his higher self that he identifies with and feels comfortable presenting himself as. If you want him to present himself as your human father, he can do that. But know that because time and space doesn't exist and you are multiple people, you are many people, we're all one. Okay. And that's where we're getting into that higher philosophy. And it makes a lot of sense to me, because there's an aspect of me here now speaking to you, and then there's an aspect of me that decided not to do this show, and then there's an aspect of me that got sucked into the secret space programs and wouldn't even be here right now, right? And all those things are true, and they all exist. It just depends on the shared reality and timeline and world that we're all coexisting in now. But who's to say that doesn't change? Maybe one of us picks a zombie apocalypse reality, one picks an ascension reality, one picks a man in the high tower reality, where the Nazis won or whatever. And, that's the nature of the quantum nature of reality, if you will.
Isn't that like the purest expression of free will?
Yes. And then think about it this way, if we decide to end it and shoot ourselves in the head, and maybe we had a soul contract that we should have stayed longer, maybe part of free will and part of the lesson might be against free will. We might have to learn a lesson karmically, have to come back and repeat. And there are people who report things like that too.
Well, I think the way I view it is that iterative process that our frequency stamp continually evolves through its own cycles goes through. We have a free will to continue that cycle and the way in which that cycle manifests. So whether we decide to be the spiritual beings having a physical experience here now, or if we choose to go and explore another hominid or humanoid form in all of these other different apparent species that are out there. And this, to me, goes, back to this idea of free will is the expression of the novelty of consciousness. Consciousness is always in a constant motion forward of creation. So, and it's seeking the next, and therefore the novel or the new. So we are always in a state of constant creation. In fact, one of the things that I was guilty of this back in the late 80s and early 90s in this whole new age movement, when everybody was like, you got to be in the now and you got to go find the one. It's like, okay, let's go navigate that and see what that means. When in reality, what it is there is no now, there is always next, because the present is always thinking about and being in the next. And there is no one out there, there is only one within. Because if we are a unique frequency stamp or signature of consciousness, because that's what consciousness does, it creates, right? So we're an example and a piece of consciousness. So we have the same inherent innate nature of consciousness. So we create. We're always looking for the next. We're always moving forward in motion. And the choice that we have in free will is determine how we manage that. How do we navigate it? What do we do that makes our experience as positive as possible based on whatever our definition of positive is? But we're always in a possible, potential, and probability model. We're always thinking about what that is. And we're always making choices based on what we think our prognostications and our predictions are doing, what we are thinking of. What will be next and how will I handle that? So to me, that's really the great awakening of how our reality actually functions. All these other sideshows and anomalies and extremes from one side to the other, and all of the fluctuations that happen within it, are just the ripples of everybody in reality trying to navigate their possibilities, the potentials, and the probabilities. Because we're always in the next. Even when we're not doing anything, we are in the next of the now. So we're never now, we're always next. And that's the thing that I don't think people realize. I think they get stuck and siloed into these psychological and mental boxes and frameworks that keep them from realizing their full potential. This is what the mystery schools, the mystic arts, and so forth have held this knowledge for millennia.
So let me jump in here. I think the issue that we're running into now is the fact that there are these cabal dark forces who want to keep us from a higher state of being. They want to superimpose on us and our own soul contracts and our own free will, what we do and don't do. And then because of all the occultism and obfuscation and programming and time manipulation and discern project and all the black magic rituals and occult and sacrifices and poison in our food and air and medicine and water, I think that right now is a really good time to get together, for the full disclosure movement in an organized fashion, because it's no longer roll your own. I see it as more of an organize or die, avoid a children of men scenario, avoid a decivilization event, get us that much faster to our Star Trek future. And I think the more that we're aware of this and they're working in a coordinated fashion together, that the better.
I think
do you honestly think this is going to happen soon? I reckon it's just way off.
I think for 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, I'll give you the numbers that these are the optimistic numbers that I've been told. By sometime next year, the world's going to start catching on to all these secret space programs and satanic ritual abuse and the islands and stuff, right? Don't want to get anyone banned on YouTube. And then by 2026, hopefully, we're going to start getting our world televised tribunals for justice. Okay. And then about 2 years after that, 2028, hopefully, we're going to start to get our medbed technologies and healing centers, starting first at like Lake Shoals, Canada, the First Nations people, their tribal reservation land there. And then in reservations lands in not just Canada, but the United States as well. And then we're going to get our Rose Garden Memorial at Montauk Point. And that's kind of the rosy picture. And then by 2030, with everything going on, it's going to be a shit show anyway. But if you make it to 2030, good on you. And let's redo humanity and our Star Trek future and see if the solar flash is in there along the way.
I'm Kevin Costner, the postman, all the way, dude.
I see that. I can see that.
But speaking of the woods, man, I was going to mention it earlier when we were talking about the fires that, if you think about it, where do people, prepper always say, we're going to run to the hills. We're going to go to the woods. So what are they doing? They're burning it all down. I just wanted to throw
Well,
that
that's
in
where
for
the
my
underground bunkers are really the cool stuff. But I mean,
yeah.
So I think your timeline sounds pretty much in line with what I've heard, Brian, and what I'm thinking. I think it's 5 to 7 years where there's at the end of that period, there will be a massive transformative disruption across the planet for three main reasons. Well, Doc, yeah, I'm with you. For three main
starting with the Israeli peace agreement.
Yeah. For three main reasons from a technological perspective, and for two main reasons from a societal perspective. The three reasons are we've got 0 point with direct C. We've had that for a long time. The Strike Foundation, which Randall Carlson has been a part of, as just this last weekend, they put out their 2-day seminar on releasing the technology that they've come up with, which is basically creating energy from the ether using geometric patterns, right? So that's one of the ways in which 0 point is attainable. But so energy is going to completely disrupt everything because everybody's going to have all the energy they need. So the infrastructure, the systems, the institutional stuff that goes along with what we have today is going to be completely decimated.
But the problem is, Professor, because I have to go. My whole analysis on that real quick is, yeah, it's one thing for us to have the energy and the med beds, but the whole ability to produce, because we're not going to have a industrial economy anymore, short of us getting replicator technology, I think it's going to be really rough. But with that, I have to go because I want to keep my own wife happy. But I hope to get to continue this discussion with you gentlemen later.
Hey, we can have another episode. We can continue. Nice having you on board there, Brian. Hey,
thanks, Brian.
Professor.
Pleasure as always. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And cheers to our audience. All right.
Okay. See you later, Brian. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, hey, how the puppies going there? Sorry there, Robert. How are the puppies going there?
He's got dogs.
Dog?
Hey, dog. I let him out to play with the big dogs today, so that was a big day today. They like that.
So you're crossbreeding now, eh? Sorry, mate. Oh dear. Anyway, I think it's time to lay. I think it's time. Let's wrap it up. You look tired, Doc. You really look tired, mate.
It's lighting.
I see that you're.
Plus, I've always
Dr. Peppers, mate. I see.
Yeah, I've always had these puffy eyelids, so people always think I'm squinting. It's just I've always had like baby fat that never went away there.
I'm going to use that. I've been trying to explain mine, and I've never used baby fat before, but I like that.
There you go. That's a freebie, Professor.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Anyway, guys, listen, great having you guys on as usual. Hey, great catching up with you there, Doc, mate.
You too. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, don't be a stranger, mate. Hey, we're always here. Always an open door for you, mate. You know that. I'll always send you a link. Regardless if you can't make it, I'll still send you a link, mate. So
no worries, no worries.
Yeah. And Robert.
Thanks, Doc.
Hey, thank you for coming on. I thought you weren't going to make it for a moment there, Robert.
Well, there's a lot going on, and it's just I'm trying to squeeze myself into my own stuff, let alone everybody else. So,
one thing I like about having you guys on, I can't get a word in edgeways. I just sit back and just enjoy the show. It's wonderful. Hey, Doc, remember when you were there? You were doing it, mate. You were struggling for that, weren't you? You loved the company, didn't you, mate? Yeah.
No, dude, it always made it better when there was people on the show.
Oh, it's always
it's like you're basically you're technically talking to yourself, but everybody else is watching you talk to yourself.
Listen, I've got my ship, you've got your ship. We've got to get Robert a ship, and everybody have a ship, and we'll have a fleet going. You know what I mean?
I actually got a huge gong in my shopping cart for one day when I have the money. A gong that he has in the
let's have a look.
background, because they show this one that's like a like 9 foot in diameter, and they've got these different types of things, and they're just barely touching it, moving it, and it sounds like the trumpets everybody's hearing in the skies.
Yes.
Hey guys.
So it's just this dude who's rehearsing in his living room. He's hearing it worldwide.
Hey,
That's
guys,
awesome.
I tell you, everybody should go and look for Yvonne Wells wands. I tell you, she makes wonderful wands, and she's got all these beautiful crystals out there. Look, you'll see her on my Facebook page. I will post the link. You can find it. Hey, she's a lovely lady. Hey, we're going to have her on soon. She said I've got to give her plenty of advice, plenty of warning, notice, because she's a very busy woman. She really is, and so she's a working woman, and she's got to fit it into a schedule. So listen, guys, I hope to have Yvonne on next week, and if she can make it, maybe on a Saturday your time, and so I hope you're listening there, Yvonne. You can't make any excuses. You put your lippy on, put your eyebrows on. Hey, isn't it strange, guys? A woman turned around and says, "Why can't men just be themselves?" Well, I don't wear hair extensions. I don't have lipstick. I don't have eyelashes. When I was a young fella, I went to bed with this one chick one day, and I woke up with a woman. She's like, I took makeup off. She was totally different. That's saying a bit too much, but yeah, you've got to look at the funny side of life, eh? Anyway, I'm waffling on. I haven't had no sleep last night. I've been to the airport this morning to pick up my stepson from the Philippines, and so no sleep. 4:00, there was I at the airport, and so I've had about 5 hours sleep in 3 days. So I'm waffling on a bit.
You're doing better than me.
I see you're back onto the Dr. Peppers there, Doc.
Gotta have some form of substance when you can't afford food these days. So, all right. Well, you gentlemen have a good evening.
Hey, Doc, I'd like to talk to you offline about a couple of things. So I'll send you a message and see if we can find some time to have a chat.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, guys. Hey, catch you on. I'll be in touch with you soon. Okay.
All right.
Catch you later.
Care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Yeah, catch you later, Robert.
Cheers, brother.
Well, everybody, here am I, sitting here enjoying my own show, believe it or not. But it's great. It really is great. And all I can say is, guys, as I said, with the B, be nice, be kind, and aspire to inspire each other. It's just love one another, enjoy life, don't stress, take it easy, and maybe we can all kind of, as Doc Skinner would say, we can lift each other up and we can all rise together, which is a wonderful thought. So anyway, I'll let you guys go and be good. Catch you later, guys.
Have you any idea how successful censorship is on TV? Don't know the answer? Successful, isn't it?